I'm doing great. So thank you for coming to my show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So I can see you're doing a lot of work, having to own companies. I thought to tell about the service that you're providing to my audience.
Yeah, of course. So I run a company called Record Once, and what we do is we allow you to record your own SaaS products very, very easily. What normally happens is when you record your screen, you want to show off your product. What you do is you record your screen, you record audio at the same time. You start clicking through your app, you start explaining, and then you say something incorrectly, and then you think, oh, snap, now I need to start over again. And you throw away everything, you start from the beginning, and then you start recording a second time. And now that you're recording a second time, it's definitely going to go wrong because now the nerves are really, really, really high. The pressure is on. So what you end up with is 10 recordings, and you don't know which one was the best anymore, and you end up spending a lot of time editing your video, and before you know it, you spent a whole day. You have a 1 minute video that you're actually too ashamed to show your mum, and this is something that you're going to have to ship to your customers just because you spent so much time on it, and that's the whole reason why you started doing it in the first place. Now, I've done that a couple of times. I used to work for IBM Cloud in New York City as developer advocate, and I had to make some of these videos, and I just thought this process is broken. This is silly. We've got this concept from the 1800s with frames, and we're just kind of like emulating that, and we're doing that on a computer, and it's just kind of like evolution of crap, really. So I thought there has to be a better way to do this, and that's where I started, how I started Record Once. And what we do is, instead of just recording the pixels on your screen and giving you a box of frames and some audio and letting you figure it out, what the software actually does is it understands that you clicked on a button. It understands that you filled in a form field. It understands that you could have made a typo, and it smooths all of the mouse animations out for you. It makes sure that the typo isn't visible anymore. That sort of thing. All of these different reasons that you normally would have to have to re-record, the software can kind of like just kind of fix for you. It also does things like fixing the timing. So the timing's always, it's slow enough that a new person can view it. But there's also no long pauses in between. It's just always perfect after the first recording. So that's also why we called it Record Once, basically. So that, you don't have to go over it again and again and again before you get it right. So that's what I've been up to for the last 3 years or so. But bootstrapped it together with my co-founder. So we're the main people working on it, and it's been an awesome ride so far.
So is there any particular situation or particular day when you thought that I want to create this product and I want to solve these problems that most of the people are facing?
Well, I think it's more of a longer. It's been more of a longer process. One of the things that I've noticed in the past is a lot of the big companies, and one that I also used to work for, they have, it seems, infinite resources to do these videos and do them well. And then being at one of these companies, you realize it's still really, really difficult to do as a person. And then you go ahead and you analyze what are the other big companies doing, and you realize actually there's a reason why not a lot of big companies are doing this well, and that's because kind of like the process is broken. But it's been one of these things, like a stone in my shoe, basically, over the years, where it started to really annoy me, and then after a while, I moved back from New York City to Amsterdam, and I was thinking, well, what's the next step? What do I do? And this was the the stone in my shoe that I couldn't ignore, the thing that I had to fix. So it wasn't really a specific moment, but it's more something that kind of like built over time, basically. Yeah. Got more and more frustrated as the years went on. Basically, I became an old man. I'm not even that old yet, but yeah.
So who are using your product more?
Well, it's mostly SaaS companies. So it's either marketing people within SaaS companies that want to show off specific features or parts of their product. Basically, showing somebody is so much more convincing than telling them that it's that something's possible. If you can actually show them, then they know it to be true, as opposed to just kind of like some sales copy that has some wild claims. So that's what kind of like marketing people in SaaS companies use it for. We also have support people that use it to document processes. The similar reason. It's like it's easier to show somebody how to do it than have try to explain to them how they need to do it, and then there's too many translation layers. And then we have project managers that also go ahead and basically show off new features with our software. And then there's another interesting group, which is founders who have to document processes for virtual assistants or for their employees or new employees that come in, and they also tend to use the software for for these types of processes, basically. Yeah.
So is it premium?
Say that again. Sorry.
Is it premium?
I mean, we have a free plan as well, but we do charge for it as well. Yeah.
So what are the features that are different from free and free from premium version?
Yeah. So basically, the amount of videos that you can record are you can have more of them in the premium version, and then in the free version we don't have an MP4 export. So if you want to put it on YouTube, then you're gonna have to have a paid version. So that's the big difference. I haven't told you yet, but we also do all of the hosting and all that kind of stuff. So we see that a lot of these videos, normally the process is, one software for recording, one software for editing, and then you're rendering the thing out, and then you publish it to a platform. And it's like all these different steps. And if you want to tweak something at the beginning, you have to start over again. It's super annoying. So we decided, okay, we'll build that whole thing at once, and then you tweak the video, hit save, and instantly it's uploaded and published. The only thing that we can't do, unfortunately, is upload to YouTube. You kind of have to do that yourself. So that's the main one where you're going to have to pay if you want to do that yourself. Yeah.
So what we can do with the record ones? What
so you
we can
do? In what way do you mean?
Yeah, I got you. How can this be useful for anybody who is working on videos?
So basically, what it would do for you is it will save you a tremendous amount of time recording videos and editing it and then publishing it. Basically, it becomes this process where all of the stress is taken out of the process. So I'll give you a bit of background on who I am. I've been a software engineer for as long as I can remember, but I've also started doing a lot of public speaking, hosting a lot of tech events throughout the years, and I kind of did that by accident. But so I know what it's like to be up on the stage performing in front of thousands of people, and that's stressful. is one of the ways to describe it. But when you're recording these videos for your customers, even though there's nobody that's watching at that point in time, that same stress that you have from being in front of a huge group of people is there when you're recording one of these videos, because you have to do it perfect. It has to go perfectly, and you're juggling a lot of different balls. And with Record Once, what we basically do is we remove we let you focus on one thing. So you're clicking through your application first. You're just recording your screen, nothing else. And because timing doesn't matter, because we fix it, and typos and misclicks don't matter, because it's super easy to just say, okay, well, I didn't want to show that one. Deselect. Um, and because you're not recording your audio at the same time, it becomes a stress-free experience. And then later you add the audio to the little blocks, to the actions that basically were recorded and detected by the software. And you say, okay, well, this whole form, basically all of these clicks, all of these things that I filled in, I'll say this about it, and then you just record the audio for that, and then it figures out the timing for you. And because of that, it becomes this process where you can record a 1 minute video or even a little bit more, and publish it within 15 minutes, and editing is super easy. And that way it becomes kind of like this process where you can do it really quickly, but without all the stress and without all the pressure that you'd normally experience when doing that, basically.
So it is used for everyone who is creating videos. It can be an individual, or it can be a company.
Yes, yeah. The only specific requirement is we only record web. So if you're an individual, or you work at a company, or you're an agency or something like that, and you want to record web applications, that's where our software really shines. And that also allows us to have this kind of like a unique selling point where we understand what we're recording, as opposed to all the other software basically that just sees, okay, well, these are a bunch of images in sequence. There you go. Our software can dig in there, read the HTML, read the CSS, understand what you clicked on was a button, that sort of thing. It allows us to have some intelligence, but that's then the requirement. So it doesn't work with desktop applications, and we're a desktop application ourselves, so it's kind of it sucks for us, but our customers are happy, so that makes me happy. Yeah.
So I'm sure before doing this, you might have done research and saw how things work in order to create this one. So what exactly those points are made you to, like, I want to change this. This is what happening. I want to make this a better product, and make people to use the time effectively. What are those
Yeah.
particular points?
Yeah, so what I did before I started, so I had a rough idea in my head, and I worked on kind of like a software proof of concept, kind of like, can we actually do this? Does this, are the hooks there, basically? And so I started on that front, but at the same time, as opposed to my own itch that I felt over the years, I also started talking to a lot of other people and basically asking them, hey, do you have the same experience? What's it like for you? Have you ever recorded video for your startup? And then you often get like, well, it takes so much time, or it doesn't, it becomes out of date, and the amount of time that you put into it doesn't make sense for the amount of time that it can be relevant. And so that was a conversation that I had with and I used to work for startups and actually mentor startups and stuff like that. So a lot of startups that I talked to in my network all went through the same experience. And I was like, okay, well, there's a definite pattern here. There's enough startups out there that are kind of solving their own issue, but then doesn't resonate with anybody else because nobody else has that way of working. And this is one of those things where after talking to a bunch of people, I realized, well, okay, this is not something that is just me, and my lack of experience as a video creator or something like that, but it happens to a lot of people that at least want to attempt this. Of course, video creators that already have their whole, they know Final Cut Pro and they're using OBS and they have a whole process laid out. It's not as interesting to them because they already have a way of doing things. But for people just working at a company and thinking or freelancers or whatever who are like, hey, I want to document this product with video, it's super relevant for them.
So who are using your product? In which country it is being used?
Well, there's some in the US, and then throughout Europe, we have a bunch. I think there's also a couple of people in India that I know of that are using it. We've basically just only recently launched, so we don't have a huge user base yet, but they're spread around the world mostly. Yeah. And then I'm based in Amsterdam, so there's a bunch of people in Amsterdam that are using it as well.
So you have worked on software before. I'm sure that experience working on development side uh, and now understanding the business side of the technology and trying to give the best one. So I'm sure you will be seeing all the things which will definitely work.
Yeah, and even with my background as a software engineer, I remember saying something like, within 6 months I'll have something that I can charge for, and bring in some money and stuff like that, and they say entrepreneurs are optimistic, are too optimistic maybe, and that's a good thing because otherwise they maybe not start. They probably won't start on the problem. I think there's this saying. Oh crap! I forget the saying. But it's we didn't do this because we knew it would be easy, but because we thought it would be easy or something like that. Anyway, the quote's slightly different, but yeah, even with my background, it took a lot longer than I imagined to get to the state where we are. Of course, choosing not to go down the venture route means that the team is small and things take longer as well. But that was also after having worked for a bunch of venture backed startups was very very deliberate decision to do, basically to keep our autonomy and to focus on building a sustainable business as opposed to kind of like an opportunity, a shot at becoming a potential unicorn. I'd rather just have a more sustainable business, but that does mean that things take longer. And even as a software engineer, my co-founder is also, he's also kind of like split background, also software engineer, but also business sense. It still takes long and and much longer than anticipated, but that's life as well. Yeah.
So what feedback you got for Record Ones?
All over the place. We well, so this is I'm a software engineer, but I'm as a category of software engineer, I would say I'm definitely a web developer. But this is the first time that I'm building a desktop app, basically. So there's a whole web browser that's running inside our application, and that's how we can get all of the intelligence and really understand what the content is that we're working on. And we, as web developers, added at certain points an upload button to the app so that people could add their own audio files. If they'd already recorded it or they wanted to add a video file or something else, then we added an upload button for that. And we did a whole bunch of user tests. We would this was Corona time, so we would get on Zoom with a potential customer and have them go through the application. And they were so incredibly confused by this upload button and by what it would do. Basically, we realized if this was a website, it would make perfect sense. The upload, it goes from your computer to the website. But since this is a desktop app, upload doesn't make sense because it's going from your computer to your computer. The fact that there's a web server behind there that does all kinds of magical things, that's it's not relevant. It's not something that people understand or have to understand. So we basically found out that that upload button had to be add file. Basically, that was one of the early learnings that we had, and so we ended up doing a lot of these feedback sessions. And since we're introducing some very new paradigms, I think it was very helpful for us to constantly do that. And then you basically get feedback that people are super confused at certain points, and then you tweak it, you make it better, and then people are happy, helpful, and then end up running into limitations, and then you end up working on that, and then you put it in front of people and they get super confused again. And that's kind of like that's been our process, and it's been a good one so far. And now it's nice to see that people are just kind of like productive with it, or people that we've never talked to that sign up and make videos and share them and stuff like that. So that's really nice, and that's really fulfilling.
So record ones can record anything.
Anything in the web browser, yeah. So if you have a URL for it, it can record it. But yeah, outside the web browser, we can't, unfortunately. Yeah.
So what mostly this app that you have created, what mostly it is benefited for? Which applications in the browser that really gives a great output?
Well, mainly kind of like information system type applications. So, for example, let's say you're like a bookkeeping app or something like that. And freelancers, they have to use your app because they need to do their bookkeeping. And there's a lot of concepts in bookkeeping that if you don't understand those concepts, then it's going to be really, really hard to use that app. But the people that are using your app they didn't study to be bookkeepers. They're just freelancers or entrepreneurs or whatever. So for companies where you have this very specific paradigm where you have to educate your users how to use your app, and for them it's a game changer to be able to use video to do that, because it becomes so much easier and so much quicker for their customers to be able to pick this up. Or if you're for example, like my former employer had or spent a lot of time creating these types of videos where, they're cloud provider, so they have a lot of concepts that people aren't necessarily used to, or they're new concepts, so they have to educate their customers about what you need to do to set up a server or serverless or whatever. For them, it really makes sense to be able to use video to do this as well. So you can take the time to explain the different aspects of it, but also kind of like show people, okay, so this is what happens when you do that, and this is how it works. So for applications, mainly kind of like I'm going to call it desktop or desktop based web applications as opposed to mobile, where you have less screen real estate, so it has to be less complicated. And those web applications really shine and really get a lot of use out of Record Once, just because it enables them to do things which they otherwise wouldn't be able to do.
So mainly for training purpose or for education purpose. So it is very effectively used.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Or the marketing side of things where you're like, okay, well, you're not a customer yet, but let me show you what it would be like to do this if you used our application. And then it's more like, it is educational, but it's also kind of salesy at the same time. But yeah, really the kind of like the tutorials, that sort of thing, there really makes sense to use Record Once.
So tell me about the features that is there in Record Once and how it will work.
Yeah. So so we'll start at the beginning. So when you're recording website, and you start typing in a field, Record Once will understand that, okay, well, that you're typing in something, and I'm dyslexic, so I will mistype something more often than I'll type something correctly. So I'm always kind of like fixing this, and normally what you have is you see somebody make the typos and then correct them and all that kind of stuff. Because Record Once understands, it sees you're filling in this form field, it can go ahead and look at the final state of that form field. And once the video gets played and you see the end result of the recording, it will actually, instead of showing all of these in between states, it will go ahead and give you a nice paste animation to show the final state of what you typed. And that's one of these things where it completely de-stresses you, because now I don't have to type quickly. I can type really slowly, and I can fix the typos and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the features that we have. Another one which I briefly touched on is this: we fix the timing for you. So that means because we know, okay, you clicked on a button. We know that this is something that you're going to have to show your customers. And then you clicked on another button, or you clicked on a link, or whatever. Those are all these moments in time where you're going to have to probably explain something about what you're doing or why you're doing it, and why they should do it. Record Once puts these specific things, these actions on a timeline, and then it cuts all of the time in between. It cuts out. So you could literally hit record, start clicking through your application, walk off to get some nice tea, and then come back and then click on, and then it will have cut that piece out. But also, people that know their application are really, really good at going way too quickly through the application. So they'll click, 100 things within a minute. And, they know their app. It's like being at home, you know exactly where everything is. But for somebody that's new, that is way too quick. So what we do is we see that these things happen too quickly in sequence, and we'll actually stretch out the time in between these actions to kind of like normalize it and make it, and slow it down. And then afterwards, once you start adding your voiceovers, or you can add a little your own head or something like that, explaining something in the bottom right hand corner. Once you add that, then we look at the timing again and we say, okay, well, actually you talked for a lot longer than you clicked, so we'll make sure that we stretch things out so that these things match again, and so that you don't have to go ahead and kind of like search through frames and that sort of thing. And then you can hit publish and you get a link and you can start embedding it or linking to it and that sort of thing. And then once you get feedback from your customers that say, hey, you explained this in a way where I still don't understand, then you can go ahead and you can tweak your voiceover and hit save again, and then that'll be the newest version. You don't have to, start sending around new links or something like that. That's kind of the big features in a nutshell. But there's a lot of small detail work. You can add slides, you can add video of yourself at the beginning, or a nice logo flying in, that sort of thing. That's all supported by the application. And we're working on a number of kind of like maintenance type features for applications. For example, your application changes a bit, then you'll be able to change parts of the video and stuff like that to update them and make them more current. So that's something that we're working on right now, for example.
So what about the audio and video quality?
So this is an interesting one. Because we, I'll give you a tangent. A friend of mine is obsessed with 60 frames a second recording. He really wants that, and that's what he really wants. What we actually do is different, because we're recording absolutely everything that's going on in your web browser. What actually happens is you have a variable refresh rate. So as fast as things are happening, that's the speed that we're recording at. But for example, you could record on a very low resolution monitor, and that would normally be a problem. Or you could record on a really, really high resolution monitor, and then you'd have a video that's zoomed out. That would normally be a problem. But because we actually go ahead and we actually record the HTML and the CSS and everything that's going on inside this little web browser, we can then go ahead and give you something that's actually, as far as your website will allow it, is scalable. So you basically get kind of like, especially if you use SVG and that sort of thing, you get a video that can zoom and scale and be as big and small as you want. And one of the things that we do is we actually zoom a thing in a little bit, so it seems lower. It seems like it's recorded on a smaller screen, but a very, very high resolution screen. So that way we kind of get best of all worlds and give you the most flexibility that you can have. And then of course you can export it just to a movie file and pop that on YouTube, 60 frames a second or whatever you'd like. And but what we show to your customers is actually also just HTML, CSS being animated again. And then for mobile, we do actually export to video files because it's a little bit more flexible. But so in that way, we're totally different to what people are used to.
And what you understood about the viewer perspective?
So viewers, they of course really care about using the app. We're kind of like a gateway for their abilities, basically. So we get embedded inside of applications a bunch, or we get linked to in support docs. So the use case or the place where the viewers see our videos varies in a bunch of different ways. But I think in my opinion, the killer use case is just having little videos inside your own application that explain features, so that people can just be confused and then instantly have that instant gratification of, okay, well, I'm confused here. Click on the video icon and actually become educated and understand what's going on, as opposed to having to jump into support docs and try to find where they are in the application and trying to get information about that. So that's kind of one of the exciting parts where I see our application really, or the usage of our application really shine, and viewers be very happy as well. And viewers also tend to really appreciate the fact that we do automatic chaptering. So every single action, every click that you do is like you'd be used to in YouTube. Sometimes the creators spent a lot of time to say, okay, well, from this point we start doing that and all that kind of stuff. And our application does that automatically. In the player, you get to see that as well. So that's really nice for the user.
So video
Or for the viewer,
marketing,
sorry.
yeah, I got you. So video marketing and video promotion became very, very important these days. And
Yeah, like,
you created something that is very beneficial for this generation and for anybody who wants to present anything. So, like you said, you came from the technology, the development background. You know how things works. The backside of the display that is there in front of the viewer. So now you are trying to understand the user's perspective, seeing the application from the user's side, and trying to fix that and trying to give the best output, and you're making them to use your product uh, and use it effectively to do their business well. So in this technology experience of yours, you saw the presentations uh, before you started this. So how was
yeah,
that?
yeah.
How was that learning from those experiences? How you are using that knowledge in this product?
Yeah, we actually use it in a lot of subtle ways, and a lot of ways that we don't like communicate on the website, for example. So the thing that I told you about, people recording on either a really small screen or a really big screen. Those are one of those things where, for example, you're watching a video on your mobile and it's of somebody that had a 30-inch display with a screen in the middle, and you just can't read the text. That's one of these things where we're like, okay, well, that's something, that's a mistake that a lot of people make. We need to basically fix that and allow you to not be able to make that mistake. Or a lot of screen recording applications allow you to select a part of the screen yourself, which is nice, especially if you have a desktop app, which is an odd-shaped window or something like that. It's nice for that, but it also means that every single video that you record is a different shape, um, because every time that you record it, you're selecting your window again. So we noticed that if you look at companies that have kind of like invested a lot in showing videos, all of the videos are odd sizes, and then it looks incredibly unprofessional. So that's also one of the things where we were like, okay, it's just 16:9. You can't change it, because if you want to change it, it's probably going to be a problem, basically. So our philosophy is very much like, don't give people enough rope to hang themselves with, basically. So that's one of a lot of things that we've seen people kind of like do wrong by accident. Um, a lot of our competitors, you'll be, for example, if you're recording your screen, you're recording your browser, and you want to type something in Google, then you see the suggestions of recently searched items, and that's also can give you a glimpse into someone's life in a way where you're like, well, that's TMI. I'm, now I'm completely unfocused about what the video is going to be about. Now I'm just thinking, like, oh, horror show. So that's also one of the things where we decided, well, okay, so this has to be a browser inside an application which has an empty history. We shouldn't try and plug into existing web browsers in that way. And yeah, these are kind of like all of these cues are from watching other people. What have other people done? What have they created? And then, and yeah, like I said, like a lot of people know their own application really, really well. So they'll go really quick. That's also another thing that we learned from just watching, people that didn't use our product, create videos and see, okay, well, what did they do wrong? Or, well, what could be improved here? And then kind of just baking that into our application so that people don't have to think about it, basically.
So that shows the seriousness that you have on user experience.
Yeah, there's definitely some dedication there. Yeah.
And I can see you are also working on different product and service, and you are co-founder for it.
Yeah, so I started a number of different communities actually. So I started, for example, Amsterdam Tech, which is basically a kind of like grassroots community of people in Amsterdam working in tech, and this kind of came out of the need of or basically the insight that there's a very thriving tech scene in Amsterdam and a very thriving meetup scene, and all of the as a Ruby developer or a JavaScript developer, I know all of the other JavaScript developers in town. Well, not all, but I know a lot of them. And then as a product manager, you know all of the product managers in town. And then designers know all designers, but there's very little overlap. And I was a co-organizer of Hackers and Founders in Amsterdam, which is a different community. And there, it was so nice to have these two groups interact, and often you had like people that now, like me, technical co-founders who kind of like embody both of these things. But being able to talk to people that are more just entrepreneurs, or people that are more just only technical and don't have to think about the business side of things, it's helpful to be able to bridge those gaps. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a designer, and we were thinking, well, our communities never interact with each other. And I would always go to hackathons with him, and we would always make these really cool cool things, and win second prize. We got really, really good at that. Anyway, that's a different story. But that we thought the magic really happens when people between these different silos start interacting with each other. So we thought, well, let's see if we can actually help the Amsterdam tech scene do that. So that's why we started Amsterdam Tech, and we do yearly barbecues, Slack channel where a bunch of people signed up, and we would just chat and share things. And we also organized a bunch of events, and ended up having a conference, and kind of showing off the cool stuff that was happening in Amsterdam. And I remember being in New York for work. I lived there for a couple of years, and I'm a high school dropout, but IBM would send me to Ivy League universities to talk to the students and tell them what they could potentially do with their career and all that kind of stuff. Which is a bit of a, maybe I wasn't the best person to talk to them about that because I started from so much further back than they did. But my job was really, really cool as a developer. I got to travel the world and speak at big events and stuff like that. So in that way, I was a good person to send. Anyway, but I would talk to these Ivy League universities, and I would find out how much resources they had, and the incredible amounts of just manpower and money that they would have to work on, for example, Elon Musk's Hyperloop challenge and stuff like that. And then I would go back to small Amsterdam, and where the Dutch are really, really they don't like talking about themselves, and anything perceived as being positive about yourself. If you're positive about yourself, you're bragging, and you really shouldn't do that. That's the mentality of people here. But then you talk to people, and then and you find out that actually the Dutch team has won the Hyperloop challenge. And I know that they didn't get 50 million budget from the Ivy League university to pump into that project. I know that. So, but then everybody here is looking to the US for like, oh, but they're doing such cool things over there. And nobody here knows what kind of cool things we're actually doing. So, I thought it really makes sense to kind of like, to celebrate some of the local initiatives. And so that's what we did with the conference. And we thought, it'd be fun to share some counter, points of view versus kind of like the main narrative that's going on out there. Both in kind of like what we're doing, and also we had some bootstrappers up on stage, as opposed to the main story in tech for a long time has been like, well, okay, you have to raise money and then you can do something. And I believe you can do something and then make some money with it, even though it takes a long time often, and build something really cool out of that. So that's kind of what Amsterdam Tech is, and what it's been. We've been running it for a while now, and growing that. But I've also been involved with other communities. Currently also running the Y Combinator Startup School meetup in Amsterdam, where we get a bunch of people together that are in the YC in startup school, and we we share what we're working on, and try and help out each other, because we're all on the same boat. And and that's also been lots of fun.
So you're a serious developer. You worked as a developer before, and now you're trying to understand the requirement and the needs, and trying to fill the gaps. And now you're seeing the business side of the technology, and now you're seeing the human problems, and trying to use your technology knowledge to solve their problems. So so, like you mentioned, Elon Musk is also an engineer uh,
Mm-hmm.
who become a businessman like you, because they understand the loopholes of the application, or and also understanding the human side, and the needs and the requirement, and giving what they want with the knowledge that you have. So how you define yourself being a problem solver for two different companies that you're working for?
Well, it's definitely a learning process, and I'm also happy to be able to do these things with different people, because the things that I really enjoy, and the things that I'm not very good at. It's really nice to be able to do that together with somebody else, and try to overcome these barriers. And I already kind of mentioned that I'm a high school dropout, so I ended up for as much as possible, just teaching myself everything. So, I taught myself how to program, taught myself how to design, all of these different skills. I've basically ended up teaching myself. So that also kind of gave me the confidence to go ahead and start building a business. I know that even though if I don't know how to do something, I know I can try and figure it out, and I can probably accomplish it. Given enough time, given enough effort, I can become good at pretty much anything. Of course, I have some natural talents where things go a lot faster, and some things that I really hate doing where it just really goes really, really slow. But yeah, it's been a process, and something that every day I'm definitely learning and getting better, and also kind of understanding where I get my energy. If I know that something is just a complete energy drain for me. For example, with Record Once, we had to start up a legal entity and set that up and all that kind of stuff. And for me, that's something that it's a chore. So, I'll do it, and I've done it before, but I don't get any joy out of it. And my co-founder, he's more interested in these things, and he gets energy from actually spending time and figuring this type of thing out. So we've basically learned where, or I've become kind of like in tune with myself and realizing, okay, well, is this something that's giving me a lot of energy or not? And then talk to my co-founder and seeing what he thinks. Sometimes the things that we're good at are actually energy drains, and then sometimes it makes sense for you to then still do it because it's just less effort for everyone. But sometimes it also makes sense to try and delegate, or try and pass on the work to somebody else that can then follow their energy and actually get something out of it in terms of energy. So that's something that I've learned over the years, is to kind of like it sounds really weird, but to basically be in tune with that and try and figure that and try and understand that, as opposed to just create. What I used to do is just create a checklist of everything that had to happen, and then start from the top and then work my way down and get really frustrated somewhere halfway through.
And what's your next plan with Record Once?
So we have a lot of maintenance features that I would really like to build. So basically, we want to, even though you haven't invested that much time in creating these videos anymore, that huge day of time investment is gone. It's now 15 minutes, half an hour, something like that. But we would like to extend the life of these videos to make their shelf life longer. So we're working on some features around that, and then there's some bread and butter things that the app doesn't support yet, which we're working as hard as possible to build that in. And then once those things are in, we're actually going to go ahead and do product hunt launch and all that kind of stuff, because we still haven't done that. So get some more eyeballs on the app. So those are our kind of like plans.
So as a co-founder of Record Once, what do you say about my work, who is recording every time?
Well, I think one of the great things of what you're doing is you're being so consistent with it, and you have a huge long list of interviews that you've done, and also being somebody that has to go up on stage and also interview people as well. I think the best thing that you can do is exactly what you've been doing, and that's go ahead and do this over and over and get better at it all the time. And so I really admire that. I think you're doing an excellent job in that way, and I think the people that you invite are always super interesting, and so that I think that's really great.
So I need one observation of yours because you worked as a developer. So right now I'm getting trained as AWS Cloud DevOps Engineer role, and also
Mm-hmm.
I did masters in software engineering, also bachelors in computer science and engineering.
Right.
So right now my training is going on as a DevOps engineer. Yesterday the Kubernetes topic has done, so I'm learning it.
Nice.
So So apart from that, I'm talking with experts like you who are already in the industry, who solve different problems, and who now you came to the business side of the technology, understanding the mechanism, how software works and how the internal things of the software works. After working for so long time, now you came to the business side and trying to solve the human problems by
Yeah.
understanding their needs and observing their needs. So I'm doing this, interviewing you experts, listening to you who are already in the industry, doing so big things and solving so big problems, listening to you people from around the world, what I'm going to learn and how I'm going to use this knowledge in coming days as
Mm.
a DevOps engineer or as a technologist.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've really learned is you there's this trap being DevOps or just straight up software engineer, that you just look at the Jira ticket and you go ahead and you implement, and then that's your life. You're just working on Jira tickets. There's and there's just that, and that's fine. That a very that life can be very straightforward in that way. But I think it's so much more important to know the context of the kind of what problem are you solving, and specifically not what problem are you solving within that ticket, but to know what's the underlying reason. Why is the ticket here? What is it trying to communicate? What's it trying to solve? Um, I remember being in teams where we would get asked to do projects which would take 6 months, and not just take 6 months, but also not it would not be clear if it would be technically feasible or if the outcome would be actually good, and then being able to understand that actually what the customer needs can be solved in a different way, where they basically have 90% of what was asked, but not the last 10%, which takes all of the time. If you can understand what the customer ask is, then you can propose something that's completely different, and gets you there. And also, especially if it's something that only takes a week or so, then that can be the first step, the first thing that you deliver, and then we can start working on the rest. But if we can get that user feedback, we can get people to actually go ahead and use it. I think that's incredibly valuable. And there's this thing which Jacob Nielsen calls hallway-driven testing, where he's a UX guy. So what he basically does is in his office or co-working space or company or whatever, he wrote this pre-corona. He would basically go out into the hallway, and the first person that would walk by, he'd be like, "Hey, can I ask you to test to test this thing that I'm working on?" And he would bring people in and sit them behind the computer and be like, "Well, okay, he would basically give them an assignment. Okay, well, now do this." And for DevOps may be a little less relevant, but as software engineers, but even also as DevOps as well, you're always creating something to ultimately to enable some human to do a task. And if you can get them to if you can get someone to actually test it and see if that task is being solved, then that gives you a lot of insight into potentially what's missing, or if your ticket is actually closed, or if it's going to come back in a different way, and or maybe 20 iterations before it comes back. So that's something that I've learned from being on both sides of the fence, is how important that piece is, and also how actually easy it is to try and do that, because there's, especially if you're in an office or co-working space or something like that, there's always people that are grabbing some coffee, and generally these human beings are interested in what you're doing as well, so they maybe get to play with things that they haven't ever before. That's often exciting. So there's a good feedback loop there that a lot of people are kind of don't know that exists. I think that's one of the things that I've definitely learned, and I would encourage basically everybody to do. But especially if you're starting your career, there's so much stuff that you learn. Like my upload button, I would have never found out that if I wouldn't have had somebody just sit behind it and be like just completely stuck. And it's like it's just a label. It's saying 5 minutes. It took me 5 minutes. That's a huge exaggeration. Like it took me 10 seconds or something like that to fix that thing. So I think that's, if you're starting out in this field, and even if you're there's so many people, who are like, well, I'm a software engineer. I'm not UX, I'm not design. I think, yeah, so that's true, but you can gain, your software can be so much more complete if you have just that quick feedback loop from customers, from users, or even from just another human being that's never seen your software before, or that's just vaguely familiar or whatever.
That's great. So I wish you all the best for the product that you're working for. I'm sure it will be more effective and more compatible, and will be useful for a lot of people, because an engineer made it. Because you yourself by an engineer, you know how it should be useful for a user, and how effectively you can solve their problems. I'm sure you're going to be very big, and I'm sure your product will be very effective, and will be used by a lot of industry people around the world.
Thank you so much, Sai. That's very kind of you to say. Thank you so much for inviting me again. It's been an absolute pleasure, and keep on doing the great work.
So can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Oh, please do. Yeah.
And also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Yeah. Yeah. Please do it. Yeah.
So can you share your website to my podcast listeners so that they can check out your work?
Yeah. Yeah. It's recordones.com. They can check it out there. And Amsterdam Tech is AMSX tech.com. So they can check that out there if they'd like to. But yeah, the main business that I'm working on, as opposed to the community foundation, is recordones.com.
So I'll put your work in my website as well. People who visit my site can see your work, and also the upcoming projects that you do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you, Justin, again for your valuable time and sharing your valuable work, and the service that you are doing to the world through the technology that you have learned.
And thank you so much, Sai, and thank you for your service of sharing this knowledge and giving insight into a lot of amazing things that people have done to your listeners and everybody. So yeah, thank you.
Keep going. Thanks again.
Bye bye.
Bye.